This is the plaintiff, Danielle Michelle Andrews. She says the father of her child lied to the police and she was arrested and her child was taken from her. Her father placed her in the defendant's childcare facility, and the defendant has repeatedly denied her parental rights and slandered her good name. That's right, she refused to provide a mother with pertinent information regarding her child, and she's here in the good name of justice, suing for $10,000 for mental anguish and breach of parental rights. This is the defendant, Valencia Randall Walker. She says the plaintiff's child, Abigail, was enrolled in her daycare by her father and social services. The plaintiff had no rights to her child at that time, and because she had no custody, she was unable by law to give her any information. She just can't go around giving information about children to whoever comes to her facility. She refused to give any to the plaintiff, and, well, here they are. She's accused of being tight-lipped. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $10,000 for emotional distress and punitive damages.
Okay. All parties, please use your right hand. Be seated. Come to order, please. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Andrews, you are suing on behalf of yourself and your minor daughter for $10,000 in mental anguish, pain, and suffering, breach of your parental rights, emotional abuse, slander, and defamation. You are the child's, are you still presently the child's child care?
No.
All right, talk to me.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm here because Ms. Randall Walker denied me access to my child.
And she's the daycare provider. Why didn't you just put her in another daycare?
Because my child's father enrolled her into the Little People Destined for Greatness childcare,
right,
where Ms. Randall Walker is the director.
You're going to have to give me a little background on what's going on between you and the child's father, okay? So let's start at the beginning. The child is how old right now?
2.5 years old.
Okay. When the child was first born, was the father acknowledging her as his child?
No, Your Honor.
In fact, you had to get a DNA testing, court-ordered DNA testing, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then after that, he wanted to be part of the child's life, or so he said.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then what happens? Because one fine day you go over to where he is and it doesn't go so well. Tell us about that.
Yes, Your Honor. 20 days after we established paternity.
And by that point, the child was how old?
Around 8.5 months old.
Okay.
During court on February the 6th, 2018, he took my telephone number and said that he was going to go out and get a phone that same day to contact me regarding the child, as it had been throughout the whole entire pregnancy, and our child is now 8 months old, that I had been trying to make contact with him to get help with our child. So when he said that same day, I understood the urgency of, going out right away to get a telephone so that he can contact me regarding our child, because it had been over 1 year that I had been waiting. So 1 day passed, 2 days passed, 1 week, 2 weeks. Come February the 26th, 2018, 20 days later, I said, well, I'm going to go and stop by to see why haven't he called to check on our child, as he mentioned in court.
So let's talk about a couple things. You know where he lives?
Yes.
You were never dating him, right? You never had a relationship with him.
Any guy that I conceive a child with, I consider it dating. Yes, well, I believe we did date, but it didn't get to like where we moved in together, serious.
Right. He, however, at this point in time, did not want you coming around to his work, to his home, to his et cetera. He felt that you were popping by unannounced a bit much, right? Because he called the police and he got a restraining order, right?
Yes, ma'am. That was after the fact, though.
Okay. So when you go that day, what happens? You end up getting arrested for domestic violence.
Yes.
And the domestic violence was that you had an 8-month-old and you grabbed his arm?
There was some unconsented physical contact, yes.
Just the grabbing of an arm or something more?
No, just the grabbing of the
You
arm.
grabbed his arm and the baby was where, in your arms?
No, in the car with a relative.
So you grabbed his arm and they took your they arrested you and took your baby away?
Yes.
Okay, now normally I would look at you and say, you're a liar, that couldn't have happened, except for that I've read everything. So I know that's what happened. They literally arrested you, put you in jail, and when you got out, DCF had already decided that they were taking they gave the baby to the dad, the one who isn't involved in anything. That's what they did, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm in shock. I'm in shock. And I understand you have a prior. He has a prior too. Both of you have priors for something physical, either a battery, an assault, or a domestic. But he actually has one for domestic violence. And I have read all of it, so this has nothing to do with you. But I'm just in shock that it ended up taking how many months before you only had supervised visits. It took them how many months before you had joint custody of your daughter? Joint custody of your daughter. Tell me, how many months?
19 months.
19 months. I wouldn't believe you if I hadn't read it. Anyway, let's talk about what's actually in front of me. During those months, the child is in childcare with you, correct?
Yes.
What's the custody status right now?
Joint 50-50, legal and joint physical custody.
Okay. And so how does it work out
We're doing 1 week on and 1 week off.
right now?
Well, as of now, there's been an emergency situation. There's been a change in circumstances where the custody order is still active, but I had to file a restraining order against my child's father, and my daughter is listed on the restraining order. So as of February the 28th, 2020, he hasn't seen the child. The visitation exchanges have been stopped until our court hearing on March the 20th.
And what happened that caused you to file a restraining order?
My child's father assaulted me
How?
physically.
How?
He punched me, and with another person, they punched me several times and put his hands around my throat and pulled my hair.
Were there any witnesses?
Yes.
Did you contact the police?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Did he get arrested?
He was not caught at the scene. They're still investigating it.
Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about the defendant. At the time, you have no custody of your child, and the child gets put in daycare and was in that daycare for how long totally?
Approximately about 18 months.
Okay, so quite a while.
Yeah.
Right. So I assume you developed a relationship with the kid.
Yes.
And you liked the kid.
Yes.
And I imagine you developed you had a rapport with the father as well, because is the father doing pickup and drop off or no?
Actually, girlfriend.
Girlfriend was-
Yeah.
All right. So when is the first time that you meet her, you hear of her, or you hear from her?
October of 2018.
And the child had been
19.
with you by then for how long?
Over a year.
That's the first time you hear from her? And what
Yeah.
does she say?
The first time she called me on a Saturday, and I immediately hung up on her when she told me who she was, because usually in DCFS cases, the offending parent is not supposed to know where the child is, number one. She called. I got a little concerned.
What did
so
she
I hung
say
up.
on the phone?
Oh, hi, I'm Danielle Andrews. I know that she attends your daycare. And I'm like, oh, never heard of her. Click, because I didn't know what was going on.
You're not supposed to identify where the child is. Go ahead.
Exactly. So she called back and she left a message. So that was it. Then I talked to the father because he was telling me about the joint custody temporarily trying it from October to December, I believe it was.
Okay, but that was court ordered, right? Did he tell you it was court ordered?
No. He says it was a trial period from this day to...
All right. And did you have a court order for joint custody as of when?
As of September the 18th, 2019, Your Honor. So
Okay.
about a month before or 3 weeks before I contact Ms.
Okay, so did you send her the court order?
I asked her over the telephone to come to the daycare, first of all, to give her the papers.
For you to be able to come to the daycare. She doesn't want you. Why don't you just email her the court order, take a picture of it and send it to her so she starts to deal with you and knows that you're allowed to get information?
I did email her, and I was not sure. The reason why I did not email the copy of our court order is because...
So she never saw a court order?
I am not sure. She should have.
No, according to you, you never saw it. So she says she didn't. The father of your baby is not going to bother because it's not in his best interest. So really, there's only one person who can get the court order into her hands and prove that you're entitled to information. That's you. So you never got her the court order.
When I met Miss Randall Walker on November the 8th,
how did you meet her? Where did you meet her?
She surprised me and showed up at an exchange at the Lakewood Sheriff Station where we do our exchanges. And
you and the father of the baby do the exchange at the Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
Yes.
And I asked her to accept my court documents at that time, and she said no because anybody could get those documents.
So she's got court documents that show something. Why wouldn't you just take them then?
She didn't give me any court documents.
She didn't offer you any court documents? No. All right.
That's not
true. So what's the game plan? If you know, because you know from him that there's joint custody going on, like what does someone in your shoes do?
I called the social worker.
Oh, so you know who the social worker is?
Yes.
So then what did they do?
They said the case is closed, basically.
But it wasn't closed yet.
Well, I talked to them in December, and what she told me was the case was closed. They're waiting on the final documents.
And who has custody?
They have joint custody.
Right. So when do you learn from the social worker they have joint custody? December of 2019. Yeah. When had she first contacted you? October of what?
October 2019.
Okay. And when did the child get removed from the daycare?
I still do not know. My child's father is uncooperative. That's why.
Wait, but you have the baby. You have the child now.
No, we share 50-50.
Yeah, I know, but as of a few days ago, you have the child.
Yes, but this is temporary. Just
okay, when did the kid stop going to the daycare?
Beginning of December.
Okay, so he's the one who made that decision.
Yeah, I told him.
Okay, but you were unhappy with her because at the hearing, she testified on behalf of your husband that since you popped into the scenario, the child was not doing as well and that the child had regressed, correct?
Yes, and also I have Miss Randall.
Which is when you filed this lawsuit for $10,000 when she testified, after she testified.
No, she never actually testified. That we didn't get that far.
But you know that's the report she issued, right?
Yes, yeah. Your Honor, but Miss Randall Walker.
And then after the report was issued and that comes up in court, that's when you filed the lawsuit.
No,
right?
I filed the lawsuit 2 days before she showed up as a witness. But I have evidence that Miss Randall Walker would not return any phone calls, or she would not reply to any
but here's
email.
Here's the thing. You're asking for $10,000 because someone doesn't respond to your phone calls and give you information. Why don't you just take the child out of the daycare?
I had no authority to do so because my child.
Then why don't you just get the court order to her so she knows that you're no longer the problem? By December, when she knows you're not the problem, because did you call the worker or the social worker, or did she call you?
I called her.
And why didn't you call her earlier, like in October?
I did.
And when you called her in October, what did she tell you?
Basically, they can't discuss what's going on with the case.
But by October, we know she had joint custody. How do you find out whether you're supposed to talk to the parent?
Oh, I don't know if she provided me with the documentation.
And you say she's lying when she says she tried to give you documentation in person.
She didn't give me that.
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiff says she submitted paperwork to the defendant showing her that she has joint custody, but the defendant still wouldn't let her see her kid at the daycare center. The defendant says she hasn't seen any legal documents. Can the defendant stop the plaintiff from seeing her kid? Let's listen.
If you can't figure out how to mail her the documentation, I'm having trouble thinking you carry it in your purse.
Your Honor, there was a...
But either way, let's assume you gave her the documentation. Let's assume that you emblazoned it in laser engraving in her eyeballs. Why would someone who is the child care worker for your child, who just says, I can't talk to you, you're the subject of for the last 18 months of a child, and won't talk to you, have to owe you 10 grand for that? Your remedy is take the child out of that child care. You have joint custody. You can go to court and say, hey, I can't get information from her. You know, when you're in court all those times, why don't you pipe up and tell the judge, I can't get information from her, I don't want her going to that daycare anymore?
Because, okay, number
Or
one.
stop taking the child to that daycare while the child's in your custody.
I never take
didn't.
her
I wanted to know that. Okay.
when the child is in my custody.
Got it.
She only goes for the 2 weeks when she's in her father's custody. Once we became co-parent, we got joint custody.
2 weeks a month, you mean?
Yeah,
Right.
once we got joint custody.
Right.
When I was on unsupervised visits due to the false allegations of my child's
Well, they're not
father,
even false. He says you grabbed his arm and you did. I mean,
but it was consensual. But that's a different story.
I gotta be honest with you.
Your Honor.
I gotta be honest with you. You grabbed the guy's arm. I was a prosecutor for 10 years. Yes, you shouldn't grab the guy's arm.
But the statement.
Stop talking and listen. I'm saying something in your favor, and you still can't stop talking. This is the persistence that ended you. You know, you got to know when to pull back in life. That's how you ended up in this situation. But the idea that grabbing someone's arm could take their child away from them for 16, it's just astounding to me.
What I mean by false statements is the statements that he made to the police in the police report and the statements that he made on his.
What are those statements?
Details relating to the incident and witness statements. He made 2 different statements pertaining to.
Did he say you did something worse than grab the arm? I know. That's the part I can't get away from.
Like the
All
day
right,
and the
let's talk about your lawsuit. You want her to pay you $10,000. What legal obligation did she breach? Did she hurt your child? Did she not care for your child? Was she negligent with your child? You know, you feel like there's some law that requires her to talk to you, but there isn't. Your remedy, if somebody who is taking care of your kid won't talk to you, is to not let your kid go there. You could have raised with the court, hey, listen, he can't take her to that childcare unless I get to hear, unless I can communicate because I have custody. And that didn't happen. Your remedy is to send her, you know, the court order that shows that you have, it all happened in the space of a couple of weeks where all of a sudden he stops bringing her to her. That doesn't entitle you to 10 grand. I realize it makes you angry. I realize that you have felt really disenfranchised from your child's life and that it's wrong. And I'm not so sure that I disagree with you based on the facts as I see them. But in any event, that doesn't mean she owes you 10 grand. You have a counterclaim against her for what? What's the false reporting, emotional distress, and punitive damages?
Well,
she didn't falsely report. She said exactly what was making her angry, that she's not getting information. Mm-hmm. How's that false? It's inconvenient for you that you had to deal with the inspector, but tough. Yeah. You know, because it's a situation where she was the parent.
Your Honor, I have a letter from my DCFS social worker where I did try to have my child stop going and address it with the court, but they never did anything about it.
Okay, so that's good. You did what you could do. But here's the thing. The scenario you are describing where she is being uber cautious doesn't entitle you to 10 grand.
Wait, hold
she
on.
has to be violating a legal obligation on her part.
Can I tell you my daughter has been crying because she wanted me to come into her childcare. She know that I do not go there. And then she talk about the other parents, the other children's parents and how they be involved at the childcare. My 92-year-old grandmother got involved as well. And my grandmother passed away the last day of the year.
How does that entitle you to 10 grand from this lady? This is a very unfortunate situation.
She caused me emotional and mental anguish for 3 whole months.
Because what you do is you take the court order and you tell her, look, I have joint custody. Let me show you the court.
She threatened harassment
Then send a certified copy to her.
We're
talking about 2 months.
Your Honor.
Talking about, stop. On your lawsuit against her, 0. You need to focus. Focus on what matters now. Focus. Don't let yourself get so crazy about things that you are unfocused, okay? Focus on what matters now. You are not entitled to have her pay you 10 grand because she wouldn't talk to you. Stop talking. And you are not entitled to 10 grand because she complains about something that is exactly what she's complaining about. She didn't lie on you. She didn't say you beat her kid. She didn't do anything that's false. She reported you for exactly what she felt she could report you for. Mm-hmm. And so if you get investigated for it, maybe next time you try a little harder to figure out what the facts are rather than just believing the dad. Okay. And it's kind of strange to me that something so easy, all that has to happen is that a certified copy, let's assume that she says you never even tried to give it to her. When I said, did you mail it to her? You're like, no. Okay. Well, a certified court copy that shows that you have joint custody. This wouldn't have happened to me. I would have gotten that to her, and I would have sent it FedEx so I had, proof that she got it. And then I would tell her, we're going to have a problem. I'm going to report you if you don't talk to me. I'm the parent. I'm allowed to be there, whatever it is. But instead what happens is for 2 months, you can't visit your daughter at the daycare, and that's supposed to translate to 10 grand?
No, I wanted to also take a tour of the daycare.
You lost.
What about the defamation and the slander?
You lost.
For her showing up at court.
You lost. And you need to accept when things don't go your way.
I understand, but what about
verdict for the defendant on your lawsuit against her, and verdict for the plaintiff on your lawsuit against her. We're done. Move forward.
So, in these competing $10,000 lawsuits, neither party wins their case. Ms. Andrews, I feel sorry for you, but you heard what the judge had to say. What are you thinking right now?
I'm shocked because Ms. Randall Walker denied me and my child our bonding rights for 3 entire months. And Ms. Randall Walker, when I contacted her, she told me that she was going to get in contact with my social worker and call me back. So why would I go mailing her any documents when, number one, she had made a stipulation in a verbal agreement for me to wait, and she gave me instructions for her to call my social worker, and then that she'll call me back. And then after that, she threatened harassment charges. So I felt, to take it up with the court as opposed to trying to deal directly with her.
Well, it just didn't work here in this court. You may have some case in a different court, but not in small claims court against her. So I'm sorry, but
What
that's the
kind of
judge's
different
decision.
court?
Well, I'm not sure. You might need to have some legal help, okay?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I hope things work out for you. I know it's been tough, and I know how you feel. But that's it, okay? Thank you very much. Ms. Randall Walker, she's had a tough road,
Yeah, she has. And I feel sorry for her, but what can you do? I'm only a childcare provider.
Okay, you heard what she had to say.
Yeah. My heart goes out to her.
Okay.
And,
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
enough. Okay. Pretty complicated case, Harvey. What do you think?
Look, Doug, communication is critical in these lawsuits. All the plaintiff really had to do was submit these documents to the defendant, and all the confusion could have been wrapped up.